first and foremost, welcome everybody. And the reason we are excited about today's conversation is because we're going to be jumping into a topic that is fundamental, I think, to any business. Like it doesn't matter what type of business. And that is key performance indicators. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the stuff that we measure for marketing, especially for B2B marketing. And we're going to talk about stuff that we're going to get a little bit into OKRs, but I don't plan on going super deep into them. Now, why is this fundamental to business? Because there's the old adage that if you went to business school, you heard it a gazillion times. And if you didn't, you still might have heard it like way too much, which is you can only manage what you measure, or what you don't measure can't be managed. And there are variations of this. Okay. By the way, we got a couple of viewers on LinkedIn, which is awesome. So if you can hear us, if you're listening, like give us a thumbs up or hearts or something. If you're into KPIs, give us a like so that so that we know we're doing good. Oh, we got a couple of people. Welcome. This is so exciting. I sound like a kid at Christmas, right? Like, oh my gosh, we got just excited to be live streaming for the first time on LinkedIn. I've done it like a trillion times on Facebook, but not on LinkedIn yet. Okay, so Zoli, what do we want to start with? Do you have any opening thoughts for what is KPIs in B2B marketing?
You can't really attribute all of the favorable customer actions to like one specific marketing sequence or one specific marketing action. And I think that speaks to the KPIs as well, because you often still see leadership wanting to use the same sort of KPIs and the same sort of metrics that made sense 5-10 years ago, or something that was sort of conditioned into marketers into what you want to be doing is you want to measure everything and you want to have numbers for everything, and then the only thing that makes sense is to do the stuff that you can easily have outputs for in numbers. And so that's why I think it's quite important to have KPIs that actually reflect the input, as you always say, the leading stuff, and not necessarily just focus on like what is it that gives us quick output and what is it that gives us like quick feedback on what we are doing, because often the stuff that we do might not have numbers attached to them as quickly or as clearly.
Right. Okay. So whenever we talk with clients, of course, they want to be measuring stuff as well. But very often, if it's a company who doesn't have marketing down yet, so they're a sales focused organization, and they might have like one or two marketer on board, then the problem sometimes is that they're not sure what to measure. And then when they start thinking internally about what to measure and what KPIs to use, they come up with like 27 indicators, and many of them don't make sense. And they know that it's a problem, but they're, because they're not marketing savvy yet, they're not at that organizational maturity yet. So they have questions. So they're like, okay, what is it that we should get rid of? Because they want to get it down to a few key indicators. And that's perfect thinking, right? Because especially at the executive level, like you don't want to be measuring every tidbit piece of marketing and sales activity. You probably want like 2 or 3 numbers. And these numbers are probably going to be lagging indicators. And if you do your job right, then you're going to tie at least 2 of these numbers to revenue. Okay? But when you're just looking at marketing activities, demand generation, lead generation, you need to have other indicators as well, other metrics as well. And that's what we shall. Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to tease like that's what we shall reveal in the coming moments.
Right.
But go ahead.
The last thing that I wanted to say is that, we are not at all for a second saying that you shouldn't measure things. As you said, obviously it is quite important to measure stuff, but I just think that it can be quite misleading into what activities you should be doubling down on when you only base that decision on like easily measurable stuff. So, not every company, and especially now as a lot of things are changing, like third-party data and stuff like that changing, not everything comes down to like PPC. You can't base all of your decisions on, can I measure how, this piece of content, whatever it is, a blog post is doing. And if it's not doing instantly amazingly, then it doesn't make sense to write blog post. because like the buying journey is often going to be up and down, sideways, whatever. So it's not a straight line. And so you have zero idea which of your content pieces actually had like a major part in the final decision of buying. And just because you have an ad that has like good reviews, that doesn't mean that that's the only thing that made a difference in the journey.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so we need to be aware of a few like gotchas about measuring stuff. And one is that, oh, you're sharing your screen. Okay, so one of these things is that in marketing, you can't be obsessed with attributing everything and every little activity to revenues and outcomes, because it's just not realistic, because that's not how the business world works. I like I like dating analogies a lot in marketing, and one of them says that it's like impossible to attribute you taking your significant other out to the movies in relation to them saying yes to a wedding proposal. Okay, so it's like, just like a relationship, a human relationship, a B2B relationship in a sales cycle is also long and complex. So it's impossible to track and measure, and it doesn't even make sense to track and measure like every little single thing and to determine or try to determine how it relates to revenue.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because that's a bit like, saying with the dating analogy that the only thing that led to your significant other saying yes is you asking the question. Whereas obviously like everything that happened before had like a major impact on that. Yeah. But that's like one of the measures.
Some a positive impact and others a negative impact, just like in sales and marketing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Zori, so you want to dive in? Let's go.
Yeah. So this is obviously just an example of what we do with some of our clients. And what you see here is really basic stuff. And as I said at the beginning, this is about input. So this is about what is it that we want them to be, or, together with them want to be creating each week, month, whatever quarter. And that's what we want to start out with. So that's what we want to be measuring instead of measuring. We obviously have numbers on like, what is the outcome of that, of the stuff that we put down. But we mostly want to be starting with focusing on stuff that we are creating, and to see the consistency week by week on each of these different platforms or each of these different mediums, basically, and what sort of assets we are creating on a weekly basis, basically.
Yes. Okay. One thing to note here is that for LinkedIn, we refer to personal profiles. And in this case, this table, because it's simple, it's set up for one LinkedIn profile. So all the numbers that go in here relate to one person posting and their related statistics. Ideally, you will have more people posting. So what you can do is, if it's just one or two other people, then you can include them in this table. If it's more people, you can create a separate table just for LinkedIn and measure stuff there and measure, because LinkedIn for most of you is going to be so significant that it deserves its own tab in Google Sheets, doesn't it?
Exactly. And then, when you look at this, or when, like, let's say a client looks at this, at first this can look quite daunting, because you see, oh my God, like you have to create one blog post, a podcast that's like bi-weekly or monthly, every week, a bunch of different LinkedIn posts weekly. But the good thing is, and this is something that you often talk about as well, and you just, I think, recently created a quite fun TikTok on it, is that most of this stuff is repurposable. So you literally, like, let's say, have a webinar, you can then use that as a podcast episode as well, which then you can break down to like, small spin-off pieces, which you can post on LinkedIn. And by the way, you can write like a blog post about the podcast that you just recorded. So basically you are, creating one, let's say half an hour, 1 hour long video, and then repurposing it to 3, 4, whatever different platforms in different ways of writing about it.
Exactly. Okay, now for you guys watching live right now, if you're one of the 19,000 people who's following us on LinkedIn in this moment, okay, maybe I misread the number. Maybe that's 4 and not 19,000. But if you're on the show, if you have like one favorite indicator that you swear by, please drop it in the comments here. Or if you don't, then you can just drop that in the comments as well. but we'd love to hear like what is one favorite indicator, because I don't have a favorite indicator, and in a lot of cases it doesn't even make sense to like pick out one favorite indicator. When it comes to leading metrics, obviously for lagging metrics, I love to tie as much as possible into revenue. Like people will have their views and their opposing views on that, but just holding true what I just said about not trying to tie everything into revenue, I still want to try to tie a lot of activities into revenue. Now, for LinkedIn, it's never going to happen, and I don't care about that. But if I had to pick just one favorite indicator, it would have to be influence revenue. Okay. And if
Right.
you
Yeah.
go ahead and drop in your own favorites, your Lieblings, your darlings. Okay,
Yeah.
Zoli, go ahead. I interrupted
Yeah.
you.
One other thing that I wanted to say, like content wise, when I say it's great because you can actually repurpose one or two pieces of content to like 3, 4, whatever other mediums. What's fun about that is that, you often see with clients that it's not always easy to keep focus on like one or two things that we want to be doing, which we definitely want to start out with. So obviously you don't want to be focusing on like 4 or 5 different things at the same time. And when they see something shiny, a new tool, a new way of putting out stuff or something that can draw their attention. But I think that's another key aspect with this, is that you're actually doing a bunch of different things, but you don't have to produce as much content to do it. So you can still keep your focus on producing, 1, 2, whatever unique content pieces, like let's say bi-weekly or in a month, but you can use that content piece in a lot of different ways. And so you're sort of you're also you do the two things at the same time. So you can basically focus on a lot of different fun things to do. It's not just LinkedIn all the time, but you also don't have to really break up your focus, because basically it's like 1 or 2 content pieces a month.
Yeah.
That I think is a fun aspect of this.
Yeah. So again, as you said, Zoli, as you add more priming tools to the mix, you will obviously expand this table. So right here, what we have as far as assets is we have obviously LinkedIn activity, which is not really an asset, but we've got the blog, we've got the podcast, we've got the webinars, and we've got growth marketing tools such as an assessment in this example. And we've got priming campaigns, and for this we have a market research campaign. And obviously these come and go, so like you will do a market research campaign every once in a while, so it's okay if it's like empty half the time or or a lot of the times, but you still want to have everything in this one table. Not everything, actually, not everything, and I'm just going to correct myself right away, because you don't want to overcomplicate it. So, we could jam this full with a lot of other metrics and indicators on how our content distribution efforts are going and whatnot, but we don't want to, because we like to keep it simple.
Yeah.
And it looks like a lot of columns, but it's really not, because you have both. Okay, what we love about this table, Zoli, and I know you do too, because it was your idea, is that we have both leading indicators and we have both activity indicators and result indicators. Some people prefer to call that leading metrics and lagging metrics, or input indicators and output indicators. But you have the goal, you have the target in one column, and then right next to it you have the result, basically. So it's like super simple, very basic stuff. Still, not a lot of companies do it.
One other thing which is great, with not just with the repurposing, but most of these are intertwined. So it's not like you just post a LinkedIn post and that always has to be something on it in itself. It can be a LinkedIn post that reflects back to a blog post, or like that talks about a webinar, and the webinar then says that we're going to have like a longer written piece on this in our blog. And then you can, say, hey, by the way, we had a podcast episode with someone and we talked about the same topic. So basically, most of this can be intertwined, or, you can have a LinkedIn post about an assessment that you want people to fill out. These are things that we do, by the way, ourselves as well. So, pretty much preaching to the choir. But the idea is that these should strengthen each other. And it's not just that you do one on its own, but that you actually, move your audience around in all of these different places where you have content ready.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, guys, if you're live over here, just like give a thumbs up or a clap or whatever emoji icons LinkedIn offers you if this stuff makes sense to you and if you think it's useful. Okay, as far as, okay, these are like the daily activities that we measure on a week by week basis, but you also have greater goals, okay, which means that we at Clear, we do quarterly planning, which means, of course, we have like a yearly strategy, which we do at the end of each year for the following year. But then we have real specific targets and everything else for 90 days. So we plan on a quarter by quarter basis. And the way we sort of do that is that everybody on the growth team gets 2 or 3 or, okay, 1, 2, or 3 quarterly rocks. Okay, and this terminology is coming from EOS. If you know EOS, then you'll understand. Then quarterly rocks will be familiar to you. So these are basically outcomes that everybody on the growth team basically willingly puts on their shoulders, that they will want to get this one big achievement done. And as I said, we usually have 2 per person. Sometimes it's 1, but it's just super simple. The idea is that you want the outcome to be quite specific. And again, we use this Google spreadsheet in this. And we have, if you look at like Drishti's example there, we have a comment, which, where did that, oh no, okay, you didn't copy over the comment because this was a,
yeah.
Okay, so in the original sheet, we have comments where we specify the outcome and specify what is 100% outcome in the case of 1 rock, okay? So for Dana, we have something that is called the Electric B2B Bytes technology implementation, which will be a, basically it's a content serving mechanism for you guys to consume our content in newsletters and on the web on a daily basis. And one of Dana's rocks is the technical implementation of this. One of Drishti's rocks is the content strategy and the content assembly of the same thing. And so we would specify what exactly has to happen in order for them to hit this rock. Okay. In the case of campaigns, like you can see Jolti's rocks over in column H, sometimes it's really easily quantifiable. Like we're going to do an assessment and our quarterly goal is for Jolti to have 1,111 assessment fill outs. Okay. And that's easily quantifiable and measurable. Okay, now it's not enough to have quarterly rocks because they're just too big and you can't lift them. Okay, so what we do is break down these quarterly goals into, you guessed it, ladies and gentlemen, monthly goals, which is what you see on Zoli's screen right now. And it's pretty straightforward. You'll want to break down these goals into monthly targets. Okay, so sort of sub goals. And by now you probably get this and are getting the hang of this, but after you are done with monthly goals, you go into weekly goals, and we call them weekly yes and monthly yes because I don't know why. That's just how I named these sheets in the beginning. And so week by week, we have 3 goals, 3 top outcomes that we want to achieve. They're usually related to the rocks, but not necessarily. Okay, so they can be related to client projects and anything else. Like Zoli has creating TikTok videos, and for each of these sheets, we would have the goal, and then we would have the results right next to it. And I know that some of you are asking right now. Yeah, I'm hearing questions saying, okay, how do you determine 50% and 75% and 100% in the case of these goals? It's sort of subjective. The point is that you're always honest with yourself, and it's never going to be like 100% accurate and consistent and scientific. It's just, we use 0, 25, 50, 75, and 100%.
Yeah, but to be fair, in some cases it is quite easily quantifiable. So as you said, when you say do 111 of something, or do in the quarter I want to get to like let's say 100 TikTok followers, obviously ICP. And then you say, okay, I want to break that down to like 3 months. What is that going to mean, on a weekly basis? And I think two things that you also see on this. One is that it's not necessarily directly tied to revenues. It's not like, let's bring in this much. Obviously, we talk about budget as well, but the goals are usually the input numbers. What is it that we want to be putting down? And then hopefully with the experience as well, that will bring in the revenue or whatever, like the end result of that. And then the other thing that you see is that Drishti is the most tedious colleague, because she's the one who has everything already.
Yeah, Zoli is the least.
Yeah, that's quite easy to see that she has all this filled out already. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. And then obviously we have daily stand-ups, and not every day, but perhaps we should do it every day. But in these stand-ups, about twice a week or 3 times a week, we reflect on how everybody's doing with the weekly goals. Right. Yeah. And at the end of each week, so on every Friday, we have a rocks meeting. These are the Friday 10 a.m. meetings where we check out what's going on with the rocks, who's making what sort of progress. And so everybody is very much aligned in the growth team. And then we share insight, we share struggles, we share wins, and it's just a good system. Like, yeah. To be honest, we're just getting into it. So I'm now beginning to enjoy the fruits of this, because we've been doing it consistently for a few weeks now. And it's more than that, actually. It's quite a few months now, but it's, it takes getting used to, but the results are, and the rewards are well worth it.
Yeah, and it's actually quite similar what we do with the with our clients as well. We don't necessarily have like quarterly rocks or whatever, but we do have obviously like quarterly goals that where we want to be getting. And at the beginning, we set up the strategy. We say this is it's pretty much gonna look like this. Obviously, we are prepared to change course if we need to, but we usually can say beforehand that in a few months time we want to be doing this, then we want to start doing this and all of that. So it's quite similar. And then we have like usually more than one weekly meetings, sort of like stand-ups as well, monthly stand-ups, and then we check on the same sort of numbers. What is it that we are producing? Do we have the consistency that we are looking for? Any sort of feedback from the company? So yeah, it's rather similar to what we do with the clients as well, I would say.
Exactly. Yeah. So what you have here, ladies and gentlemen, are not just KPIs, but KPIs and quarterly goals broken down into monthly and weekly goals. Okay, so that's the cadence that we do in-house and with most of our clients. Okay, yeah. So guys, thank you so much for sticking around. This was a fun session. Maybe a few glitches there in the beginning with this first LinkedIn Live, but it's a new format that we're testing. And we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.